I Nuzlocked Pokemon Crystal using my Hall of Fame team from the Kanto region. My goal is to get from Kanto all the way to Paldea while using the same Pokemon. And although our adventures in Yellow proved to be successful, Johto would prove to be much more difficult. The rules for the lock are on screen, but I've added a couple more to make this challenge a little nice and spicy, and a bit more painful all the way to the bitter end. So without further ado, let's get started with Pokemon Crystal. We're greeted to the Johto region by everyone's favorite professor, Professor Oak, of course. We start off in our room and realize that Johto has a whole different healthcare system than Kanto, because we don't get the free potion this time. How sad. We make our way downstairs, and this time we're forced into having a conversation with our mom. But it's okay because she gives us a phone to use in our adventure, and we aren't paying the bill, so thanks, Mom. We head into Newbark Town and see a mysterious guy staring at Elm through the window. Talk about creepy. So we go over and talk to him, and he kicks our ass a few feet away from him. Bro's an actual Hitmonlee. We head inside to meet Elm, who seems very excited to meet us and offers us a choice of 3 different Pokemon to start our adventure. This guy is already 10 times better than Oak ever was. We choose our starter based on the poll I posted on the community tab here on YouTube, and we get Cyndaquil, who we name Knuckles. Personally, I wanted Chikorita, but she got the lowest amount of votes, so I'll send my apologies to her and I'll say goodbye to my sweet princess. We head outside and make our way west so we can talk to Mr. Pokemon about a mysterious discovery he just made. We get a taste of the very much new and improved user interface, the bag organization, the Pokegear, the updated sprites. It's all so wonderful. But the best part has to be the experience bar, the best quality of life improvement ever made to the series. Excluding the infinite bag system, of course, but we don't even have that yet, sadly. We start to see which Pokemon will be available to us as we make our way north past Cherry Grove and up to Mr. Pokemon's house. Here's where we get to meet Professor Oak for the first time on this trainer's journey, as well as the world famous Mr. Pokemon. He gives us a mysterious egg that we must now carry all the way back to Elm without breaking it. Talk about pressure. As we head back out, we get a call from Elm, who must have thought he called the police, as he tells us about a tragedy that just happened at the lab. We rush back as fast as we can, only to be stopped by that guy with the Hitmonlee legs. He challenges us to a battle, and we beat down a Pokemon that looked very familiar to us. We make our way back to Elm and find out one of his starter Pokemon had been stolen, and the only thing I could think of was thank God it wasn't Chikorita, because she doesn't deserve such a bad trainer. The officer asks us for a name since we just encountered him in Cherry Grove, so we choose the scariest name possible, Carl. We then give the egg to the professor and finally get to begin our journey, as one of the professor's aides gives us some Pokeballs before we head out, which officially starts the Nuzlocke. Also, for this playthrough, remember that I am bringing my team from the Kanto region, so they'll be joining us shortly. That means that species claws for Pokemon such as Pidgey will be activated since we are bringing over our Pidgeot. We talk to Mom and tell her not to take any of our money, because Lord knows she'll probably just DoorDash every day with that free income to her bank account. We head east and get our first encounter of a Sentret. We catch him and name him Boy since he's the scout Pokemon, and we finally have genders in this game. We also pop up to the north route and get a reincarnation of Remy the Rattata, but this one is female, so we name her Remily. We head back to Cherry Grove and then north so we can head on up to Violet City, but not before picking up an encounter of a Caterpie who we name Gummy since he's a worm. Yeah. We also pop into the cave and pick up a Zubat, which is a great pickup since we get access to Crobat in this generation. We finally end up in Violet City where we can take on the Sprout Tower and make our way to Falkner, the flying type gym leader. Also, just as a reminder that we cannot access our Kanto team until we get the 3rd badge. At that point, I will choose a random egg in my box and we'll get to see who we get. I just want to see Sonic the Sandshrew again. But until then, we will create a fearsome Johto team, and for now, we'll head on over to the Pokemart and get a few potions and Pokeballs, and continue past the water to the very shaky Sprout Tower. Also, I'm not sure who designed this place, but I'm starting to think a Bellsprout had something to do with it. It was also at this time where I made a grave mistake. I forgot Falkner's highest level was at level 9, and I accidentally got Cyndaquil to level 10. This means I cannot use him at all until I beat Falkner. And looking at my team, that means we will definitely have some deaths. Bad start. I needed to get the other team members up to around level 9, that way I have at least a small chance of beating the gym. We find a Ghastly inside the Sprout Tower and add her to the party. We also head back to the route right before Violet and get ourselves a Spinnerack. Welcome to the gang, Spins. I head back to the Sprout Tower to take out a few more trainers, and that's where things started to turn south. We find ourselves in a situation against a Hoot who was causing some problems. This Owlboy was doing way too much damage against Boy, so I had to make a decision. I switch into Dracula and get off a Supersonic before having to switch out again. I was really banking on this confusion to help me. I switched into Gummy since I wasn't able to heal, and I really had no choice if I wanted the rest of the team to live. The Owlman breaks through multiple confusions, and we unfortunately have to say goodbye to our first team member, Gummy the Caterpie. Sorry, you just weren't meant to be. And no, it didn't stop there, as I needed a way to take down this bird boy, so I sent in Remley, knowing full well she probably isn't gonna make it. We get off a few tail whoops and hope that we can switch into someone else to deal the final attacks. And that's when my Rattata hit the dust. I'm so sorry. Now that we had a few tail whoops, I had a much better chance at getting out of this. So I switched into Boy, who had 7 HP left, the Hoot missed his attack, and I managed to take him out in one hit. Crisis averted. Kinda. We get out of the tower as fast as we can and release our 2 team members, and add one more to the party as Ghastly joins the squad. Before I finish the Sprout Tower, I wanted to have Cynical back on the team, which means I have to go take on Falkner as soon as possible. We head inside and find ourselves head to head with a very strong Spearow. Remember how I couldn't use healing items in battle? Yeah, this is where it starts to really hurt me as we run into a situation where our entire team was missing attacks and taking damage. If this was yellow, I could just heal and there wouldn't be an issue. But in Crystal, we gotta play smarter. We end up having to sack off Queen the Ghastly so that we can make a clean switch in without losing anyone else. We lost another member, but it could have been so much worse. At this point, it was obvious that I needed to get the team to level 9 to have a chance at winning this battle against Falkner. But luckily, I had a plan in mind. I go off and train in the route right before Violet before making my way back to the gym ready to take on the gym leader. I prepare myself with some berries on both Dracula and Boy. My plan was to defend Skrill against his first Pokemon and have my berry kick in to knock my HP back up. Then I would just keep attacking, hoping to withstand the Pidgeotto's attacks if I had enough defense. Let's see if this plan works out. Surprisingly enough, we took out the Pidgey with not much issues. I'm just lucky he didn't get a critical hit. He brings up the Pidgeotto and this was the moment of truth. Let's see if Boy could thug out this battle. His Gust was only doing 3 HP per hit, so I was able to get just enough to bring him down to the red before switching to Dracula, who finished off the job with a Leech Life. And that was that. We beat Falkner with a little bit of luck and get our first badge. Now I was able to use Cynical again as long as I didn't get him past level 16 so that he wouldn't get past Bugsy's highest level. We also talked to one of the professor's aides and get a mysterious egg to take with us. I wonder what's inside. We head back to the Sprout Tower and see Carl talking trash to the old man at the top. We then battle the Sage and get the HM for Flash and escape rope our way out of there. It was time to go south and get our next encounter. Luckily for us, we get a Wooper as our first encounter, and we catch her and don her the great name of Wilma. We make our way through the route without any issues, and we try to buy a Slowpoke till for 1 million Poke, but we're just a 10-year-old boy and we can't afford it. How sad. We make it to the Union Cave and encounter a Geodude who gets accidentally knocked out by Wilma. No pebbles in this run. We battle our way through the Union Cave and get Wilma up to the same level as the rest of the squad before exiting into Azalea Town. We head over to Kurt and he screams at us about some Slowpokes and Team Rocket, a name we haven't heard in a while. We decide to head over to the well that was being previously guarded and find Kurt slumped over on the ground. Come on man, get yourself together. We battle through a few rocket grunts and find ourselves face to face with the last grunt who has a level 14 coughing. We beat him with no issues and save the Slowpokes of the well. Yay for the dopey boys. We head back to Kurt where he can now create Pokeballs for us, but they won't be ready till the next day, so that won't really help me all that much. We go back to the Slowpoke well since we never encounter anything, and we manage to get a Slowpoke of our own on the squad. Since the next gym was Bug and I didn't want to get my levels too high, I thought now would be the best time to take on Bugsy. We make our way inside and get Cynical to evolve into a fearsome Quilava, our first evolution of the lock. We now got the other trainers and find ourselves in our second gym battle, Bugsy, the Bug-type gym leader. We lead with Dracula and let him bite into the bodies of both the Metapod and the Kakuna before we ring in Quilava for the Scyther. Now if you don't have a fire type for this battle, it can definitely be a little tough. But lucky for us, a couple of Embers is good enough to take him down and we get our second badge. Our level limit increases a little bit to 20, so we have a little more wiggle room for the scariest gym leader of them all, Whitney. If we can manage to beat her, then we'll also be able to grab our first egg from Kanto and then add them to our team. I wonder who will get first. We then head west into the Ilex Forest before we're stopped by the mighty Carl. And honestly, I didn't think I had anything to worry about with Carl. We take out the Ghastly and then out comes his Croconaw, which proved to be much more of a challenge than I thought. We end up getting into a rough situation where we relied on Dracula's Supersonic to get us through the fight, but in order to make this plan work, it might require some sacrifices. This is where we see the quick end of Tina the Slowpoke and Spins the Spinnerack. And although we lost them in this battle, their contributions will continue to live on forever. We manage to take out the Croconaw using Quilava and make it out alive. We then head through the Ilex Forest, we track down a lost Spearow and get the HM for cut, we chop down a tree in front of the Celebi Shrine and make our way out of the forest. On the following route, we encounter a Drowsy and unfortunately add it to the squad. I hate how this thing keeps following me. We make our way into Goldenrod and head down the stairs to get Dracula a nice haircut, since she's been working hard lately and deserves to feel good about herself. We get the bike as well while we're here and head north to train up a bit more before facing the Miltank Lady. We managed to catch a Hoot Hoot in the National Park and we name him Mr. Owl. And yes, I will ask him how many licks does it take to get the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop quite frequently. We also pick up a Psyduck here and name him Quest. While training, I also managed Boy to evolve into a Scout, or Furret, whatever you want to call him, which is very important for this upcoming gym battle. After battling some trainers and making sure we stay under that level limit of 20, we head into the gym to face Whitney. Once inside, we don't find much trouble with the trainers until we get to the Nuzlocke destroyer herself, Pink Whitney. Our strategy here was very similar to Falkner, defense, curl, and attack, and that's exactly what we did. We set up our defense against the Clefairy knowing damn well what's coming next, the attract and a rollout. We get to the milk tank and she immediately goes for attract and makes Boy fall in love with this utter monster. This is when the rollouts start coming my way. We actually managed to break through almost all of the attracts and we get off as many quick attacks as we can until we're left in a scary situation. Do I risk losing Boy here from an attraction, or do I sacrifice someone else so I can get a clean switch in without an attraction on me? I switch into Quest and Miltank ended his life shortly. Goodbye, Duck Boy. We switch into Boy and get off one more quick attack and that takes care of Whitney. Mission accomplished. We get our third badge eventually after she stops crying. We make our way to the PC to release Quest and get our first egg from Kanto. I randomly choose an egg, and a few steps later, we get to see our first team member return. Welcome back to the squad, Franklin the Squirtle. We put him on the squad and go to the National Park to face a few more trainers, which is where we encounter yet another death. Wilma against a Raichu. Seems like an easy matchup for you unless you keep missing your slams and you get a critical hit on you from a quick attack. This is where we say goodbye to Wooper. Sorry, Wilma. But we must press on as we make our way to the dancing tree and squirt some water on it, only to find the groovy tree was a Sudowoodo. I decide not to catch it since he's actually a bit tough to catch, and I really don't see myself using him that much. We then head on up to Ecruteak, the home of Ho-Oh, and our fourth badge. We meet up with some weird dude named Bill in the Pokemon Center, and then we head down to catch our next Pokemon in the route below Ecruteak. We encounter a Stantler and we name her Clarice. We decide to train up a bit in that area only to find ourselves up against a Drowsy while we're having Dracula out. He puts us to sleep and then uses Dream Eater to take us out in one hit. I wasn't aware of how much that could do and my ignorance cost us Dracula. So I release him and briefly add Jill, my own Drowsy, to the squad so I can always be reminded of who murdered my poor bat. We spend a bit of time getting our team up a few levels in that same route before we go up to the Burned Tower to take on our rival Carl. During this time I also battle the Kimono Girls so we can get the HM for Surf, which will look really nice on Franklin this early in the game. We pick up our prize and head to the route to the west to get our first encounter, which was a Magnemite. We catch him and name him Plus. We then continue our training until we start to get more comfortable with our squad. We get Mr. Owl up to level 20 and we get our Noctowl. Now if you could just learn a Psychic type attack, that would be fantastic, but we'll have to wait for that. We also get Franklin to level 16 and we get a Wartortle. My old gang is starting to make their presence in Crystal known. Now we're finally ready to take on our rival after getting our team up a few more levels. We head inside the Burn Tower and see our red-headed rival looking around hopelessly. This battle goes much differently this time as we have zero issues with him. We take out his team with no deaths this time. Yay! The tower begins to shake after our battle and I fall through the hole, only to encounter the three legendary beasts, Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. We talk to a mysterious man named Yusin and then we head out of the tower to prepare for the Ghost Gym. But not before having a huge scare as we try to get an encounter of the Burn Tower, which was a Weezing. He explodes and leaves Franklin with 2 HP. Talk about a close call. We then head to the gym and knock out all the trainers in our path so we can take on Morty. The plan was simple. Send out Franklin and let him bite everything to death. We also switch into Boy to get rid of a curse that was put on Franklin. I decided to keep in Boy and just keep on using Mud Slap since there really wasn't anything he could do to me. This was enough to beat the Gengar, and then we switch back into Franklin for the Haunter and get our 4th badge. Now it's time to see which egg we get this time. I pull out a random egg and it hatches into fan favorite, Flower the Bellsprout. Welcome back. We then spend some time in the west training up Flower and getting him up to a decent level before continuing. We make our way past the Miltank farm and into Olivine City, one of my favorite cities in the entire Pokemon universe. We heal up and head back to the route to get our next encounter. We end up finding a Tauros, who proves to be tough to catch, but we do catch him and we name him Bully. We then spend a little time training in the grass right before going into the lighthouse. While in the lighthouse is where we see Flower evolve into a beautiful Weepinbell. She's almost back at full strength. We meet up with Jasmine at the top, who sends us on a mission to Cyanwood to pick up some medicine for the Ampharos in the lighthouse. So we agree and make our way towards Cyanwood City. On our way there, we get 2 more encounters, one for Route 40 and one for Route 41. We get a Tentacle for the first and a Mantine for the second. Unfortunately, we weren't able to catch Mantine even after throwing 20 different Great Balls, so we have to sacrifice the encounter and move on. We get to Signwood and get a static encounter of a Shuckle inside one of the houses. He's already named Shucky, so we're good to go. We trade up with some of the trainers around the World Islands before making our way to the 5th gym. Or should I say Death Central, because we end up losing a lot of friends here. Honestly, I should have been fine in here, but a lot of things did not go my way. Right off the bat, we get critted by a Hitmonlee that puts the rest of the battle into a weird survival situation. And since we can't heal, that makes this super tricky. We end up having to sacrifice that Shuckle that we literally just got. And the saddest part is that it was given to us so we could protect him from our evil rival. But instead, we let it die and release him into the wild. Sorry, random NPC on Cyanwood. And remember, this is only the first battle of the gym. We get locked into 2 fights in a row right after the Hitmonlee, and we're out in the same situation since I wasn't able to heal. I had to make a decision, and I ended up having to sacrifice Franklin in order to keep us going. He was the only one who was able to withstand some attacks while still dealing some damage back. I switch into Boy to finish the job and head back to the Pokemon Center to release the 2 fallen soldiers. We bring Bully the Tauros and Marvin the Tentacle we just got and add them to the squad. Back in the gym, we make our way to the next trainers with little issues, but now it was time for Chuck. My strategy for this was to lead with Mr. Route and set up Reflect to get our defenses up a bit and try to chip away at him that way. And while it worked with Primeape, I can't say the same one for Poliwrath. We bring in Flower immediately to get a Poison Powder off, but it misses. So we go for a Stun Spore that luckily lands on the next turn. I bring in Mr. Owl hoping for a Paralysis or a miss, but neither happened. Now I'm in a bad situation no matter what I do, so I go for a Reflect to help us out, but unfortunately it wouldn't be enough as another Dynamic Punch lands and knocks out our Birdman. I bring in Knuckles to try and get a flinch from Headbutt, but I don't get it and he knocks me out in one surf. The Poliwrath didn't have too much HP left, so I bring in Boy to deliver the final attack. He goes for Hypnosis, but the berry that we put on Furret comes in handy. That gives us another turn and we manage to take him out. Talk about a bloodbath for this gym. We do end up getting the 5th gym badge, but it was at the expense of our 4 team members, so that really hurts. We release our fallen comrades and bring out our next Kanto egg into the team, which hatches into Sonic the Sandshoe. Welcome home, buddy. I knew before I faced Jasmine I would need to severely overhaul the team, so the first thing I do is head to Goldenrod to find Bill and get a level 20 Eevee as a static encounter. It's a girl, so we name her Vivian. We also head to the route right of Ecruteak to get a couple of more encounters. Our first in the water is Goldeen, and our second at Mount Mortar was a Machop. We name them Mary and Tony, and then continue on so we can begin the training process. The second half of this Nuzlocke is absolutely brutal, so I hope you're ready. We begin to train Sonic up at some local trainers right below Goldenrod, and I accidentally switched into Sonic on a Starmie that took him out in one Bubble Beam. Yeah, this one was definitely on me, so I apologize to all the Sonic fans out there. We add Bully to the squad to take his spot, and we continue training. We then get a Leaf Stone from one of the trainers right below Goldenrod, which will definitely help us in the near future for Flower. While training, I also stopped in Violet City to pick up another encounter. Here is where I encounter a Poliwag that I catch and name Swirl. We get Swirl to level 25 through a lot of training and get our Poliwhirl. Little did we know we would soon become our most valuable asset. I also train up Vivian the Eevee at this time, hoping she'll evolve into an Umbreon at some point in the near future. We pick up a Water Stone from a random fisherman outside Mahogany, and we use the newly acquired stones to get Poliwrath and Victory Bell. Now I felt ready for Jasmine. We head back to Albine and pat back in the lighthouse to give Jasmine a heads up that we're ready to fight her. We meet her at the gym and the battle begins. We let Furret do all the talking as he just digs to his heart's content, knocking out her Magnemites till it was Swirl's turn to shine. We bring him in to finish the job and we get our 6th badge. We head back to the Pokemon Center to get our next egg, and we get the one and only Leon the Charmander. We head east to continue the journey. I had to stop to do a little bit of grinding at this point to make sure Charmander was at a decent level. We get him to evolve into a Charmeleon fairly quickly, and we also get an encounter of a Venonat and the route to the south of the Lake of Rage, who we name ATV. It was also at this time I realized that Price's highest level is 31. Jasmine's was 35, so this is a bit weird, so I had to be really careful not to overlevel my team, which proves to be a huge reason as to why we lose a few more team members. We head into the Lake of Rage and catch the Gyarados, even though I didn't really plan to use him. We talk to old Lancey Boy and meet up with him at the secret rocket base in Mahogany. We start to beat up the Rocket Cats and finally realize how great of a team member Magnemite is. Boy, I hope nothing happens to him anytime soon. But before that, we run into a Geodude in the rocket base who uses self-destruct as I try to catch him, knocking out freshly acquired Leon in the process. Yeah, this one was also my fault. We then start getting Bully some more experience as we also realize how great of an asset he could be. We find a Coughing on a Grunt and guess what? He self-destructs. I'm starting to think that self-destruct is causing me some serious issues in this run. But we head back and add Tony the Machop to the squad. Surely this one can make it. We make it through the rocket hideout without too many more scratches and head into the gym, where I have to make sure I don't use a few of my team members since they're so close to being at level 32. This proves to be an issue again, as we end up having to make an executive decision to sacrifice Tony the Machop. Oh, this is just a bloodbath right now. We momentarily add Lance the Gyarados to the squad so we can just get through the gym. We finally get to Price and take him out without too much issue. Now it was time to get our next egg and head to Goldenrod, as Elm just called us to inform us something strange was happening on the airwaves. We hatch the egg and get Burb the Pidgey, who I really don't see myself using at this stage in the game, so I apologize to his fans. We head to Goldenrod and begin the ascent up the tower. Plus the Magnemite starts to put in some good work, but guess what happens when you praise a team member? He ends up dying to, guess what? Another self-destruct. This has to be a joke at this point. But we continue up the tower with Burb in his place. Johto is really starting to get to me at this point. We fight our way through the rest of the grunts and get the basement key so we can head into the underground and continue the rescue mission. Down here we run into Carl, who honestly barely puts up a fight, as we finish him off rather easily. We get through the puzzle and find the card key to get to the top of the radio tower. We head back and battle through a few more grunts and face off against the executive trainers. We beat down with little issues. We save the town and continue the ice path so we can make our way to Claire and the final gym badge. I spend a little bit of time training at this point to get our team up to a decent level before we face the old Claire Bear. We enter the gym and push some rocks down some holes to block the lava flow so we can battle the almighty Claire, the dragon type gym leader. Beating her was also pretty easy. My issue seems to be with trainers who have exploding Pokemon. What a shock. We head to the Dragon's Den behind the gym and answer some quiz questions so we can finally get the Rising Badge, as well as an extreme speed, static Dratini. We head back into the Pokemon Center to get our final egg, which was obvious what it was, which was Gonzalez the Eevee making his return from Kanto. At this point, I had a team that I could probably work with, so I fly back to Newbark and continue on to the Elite Four. This route definitely helped me level up my team a bit and get Dratini to evolve into a beautiful Dragonair, with the help of a little more grinding inside of Victory Road. We encounter Carl for the final time at the end of Victory Road, and once again, prove that loving your Pokemon is the key to victory. Or at least the key to getting to the Elite Four. We take this time to teach our team some new moves and level them up to around the mid-40s. I had to make sure to stay under level 40 since the champion's highest level was around that. We also finally get Eevee to evolve, this time into an Umbreon, which will definitely help us in the Elite Four. Now it was finally time. The Elite Four was upon us. Here's a brief look at the squad that I think is capable enough to get us to Hoenn. So will the Elite Four be as easy as Kanto? Absolutely no chance. This was honestly extremely hard and I'm surprised at the results. Let's start off with Will, the Psychic type Elite Four team member. Here we just use Vivian to run the show as his Psychic attacks can't do anything against her. We sweep Will with Umbreon and move on to Koga. Koga proved to be a bit tougher though, as we actually had to use different team members this time. Here I wanted to use Vivian to start out and then use a few other team members to prepare myself for his Muck, who I had absolutely nothing for. We battled through Koga, but not without some scratches along the way. But that's 2 down and 2 more to go. We get to Birdo and I start with Flowers so I could set up a little bit and be able to take out a couple of his Pokemon quickly. For the rest of his team, I just flip-flop between Swirl and Flower, and we come out of the battle unscathed. That's 3 down and 1 more to go. It was Agatha's turn to be taken down. We lead with Poliwrath to deal a nice dynamic punch to the Umbreon, and then proceed to use Boy and Vivian to take care of the rest of the squad. Now it was time for Lance. This was it, the final battle of the Crystal Nuzlocke, and I knew for certain I wouldn't make it out of this without a scratch. And boy, was I right. Emphasis on boy. We lead with Flower for the Gyarados and get a Poison Powder off after a couple of misses. My goal here was to stall him out as best as I could, and then get a couple of Vine Whips off, which proved to be a good choice in the end. Next up was the first of the 3 Dragonites. We switch into Poliwrath and use an Ice Punch to beat him down, but not without a few hits dealt to us first, including a Thunder Wave that absolutely crushes us later on. Next was Dragonite number 2. Here I decided to switch into Vivian and hope to get off some damage on him. We take a few hits and get paralyzed in the process, causing us to make a decision that hurt me to my core. Sacrificing Vivian for the survival of the run. We unfortunately get Hyper Beamed again and Vivian gets sent to the Shadow Realm. Goodbye, my sweet princess. We bring in Claire to deal the final blow with extreme speed. Next was the Aerodactyl, and at this point the team was starting to get really weak. And remember, I cannot heal. I stayed in with Claire knowing full well she might not make it out of this one. We get some waterfalls off and manage to survive with 2 HP after a Hyper Beam to the face. Next was Charizard, and things were not looking good. We bring out Boy and start tossing boulders at him, only to be met with a flamethrower to the small furry body of Boy the Furret. You were so close to making it all the way, my friend. We bring in Claire to extreme speed the Charizard, but now it's time for the big boy, the 3rd Dragonite. We stay in with Claire and get a tiny bit of damage off, and he starts off the battle using an Outrage. At this point, I thought it was game over. I switch into Burb as a sacrifice just to delay the Outrage and maybe get him to confuse himself. We switch into Flower, hoping to get off a Poison Powder, but unfortunately we missed the first one. Luckily for us, he hit himself twice in a row from confusion, and we end up getting the Poison Powder off on the 2nd attack. That was until we got hit by a Fire Blast the next turn, saying goodbye to Flower the Victory Bell. At this point, I only had one Pokemon left, and it was my paralyzed Poliwrath. There's an absolutely small slim chance of making this, but we still gotta go for it. If I could just get him to not kill me in one hit, I could use Ice Punch and finish the battle. He goes for Safeguard, and I end up getting fully paralyzed that same turn. So really, it all came down to the next attack. He goes for Hyper Beam, and we survive on 16 HP. We then get our chance to land the Ice Punch, and we defeat the Dragonite. We did it, but boy, it was not pretty. Professor Oak comes in to congratulate us, and we head back into the room to be entered into the Hall of Fame. Now, since Swirl was the only surviving member of the Hall of Fame, that means him and only him will be able to go to the next game and help me take on the vast oceans of the Hoenn region in Pokemon Emerald. Now that Crystal is finally behind us, we can finally ask the question of, which starter will we choose to accompany Swirl into the tropical paradise of Pokemon Emerald?